know it's going to be interesting to see the final transformation that COVID causes.
Yeah, I can definitely see like people moving to Zoom on a permanent basis, or definitely at a needed basis, or calling in via Zoom, even if the meeting is in person. Still have the screen available so that everyone can zoom in.
Yeah, that's why when we started doing this, we've been working with Monroe County and the city's trying to say let's really get a good backbone in the city so that all these people who have been kept out of jobs because they couldn't take 2 buses to get into work every day, you can get on the internet and there's a whole bunch of jobs that are going to be available for people. Let's hope it works out. Friday, I've got a coalition meeting, and they're going to be talking, getting ready for a meeting with the superintendent on the 9th, I think it is. So it'll be interesting to see what they've got going. They're also going to be looking at what legislation Bronson might be involved with.
Interesting. What's that?
Well, the whole money issue, even though the state appointed oversight that we've got is saying, gee, you probably should be closing some buildings or finding ways to reduce the cost and perhaps get rid of more teachers. That may be something that some people would like to see done, because if you funded the education in Rochester and in other large cities where you have this concentration of poverty, it would cost you a lot more, and you would be, we've got such a concentration of poverty that just about every community school we have should be looking at having some contact with a health clinic in the area, with dentistry, with all sorts of support systems, kind of like what School 17 did back in the 90s. And somehow we need to also make sure that we have a way of getting the principals and the folks in charge of the schools to have the interest of getting involved with families. And I look at what Monique is doing over at 19, and it's just great. You've got just a fantastic group of people working with you there, and
as it should be, Monique. All schools should be like hers.
Yeah, and there's you can see, as I'm sitting on 5 community engagement teams right now, and there's a whole variety of levels of involvement that different schools have, and the hope is that as you get more parents and community folks involved in it, that they're all going to be pushing and demanding the right things to get done, and that when you have a case like over at 17 when Ralph Spezio got things going smoothly enough there that he could see that he was able to identify lead poisoning as the reason that some of the kids just couldn't be reached. After having taken care of a lot of other issues that jumped out at him, and he followed that because it needed to be taken care of, and he got a really good program going in Monroe County to abate lead poisoning, and the school went off a cliff because the next people who came in and were in charge of it didn't have the same vision, and I'm not quite sure what the ultimate solution is, but and maybe Kelly, or there has to be leadership at the city level that makes sure you have all the tools that you need, and the understanding of needing to work with the community. But all that takes money, and obviously the current administration there isn't ready to tax the rich enough to cover the cost of a lot of these programs that should be going on. So anyways, we've gotten together with Bronson on a number of occasions, and now that things are starting to settle out a little bit with the Trump administration having at least shaken the transition money and process loose to have the Biden administration go forward, it will be interesting to start getting a feel for what Albany is interested and capable of doing in terms of resources. Yeah.
I can remember years ago that our teachers in Rochester were one of the highest paid in the United States, and it was a big move. And my sister, who was in Boston, affiliated with the Boston school system, called and said, "This is amazing. All eyes are on Rochester." Because they said this pay raise and this will raise the level of the children in Rochester. We're the lowest in the state. I think we're leaving out, and we have some wonderful teachers, but are we leaving out accountability too, not just money?
Yeah, I don't know what. I haven't gotten a good picture of just what went on. I remember a few years about the time that they were pushing that through. My kids had moved back to Massachusetts with their mom, and I stayed on the Budget Advisory Committee for 1 year, but since I didn't have any kids in the school district anymore, it was hard to say, oh, I'll stay on this Budget Advisory Committee and tell you how to use your money for the schools. But the person that was in charge of that brought this dog and pony show to the Budget Advisory Committee each month or twice a month was Peter McWalters, who ended up becoming the next superintendent after Lavelle Wilson left. And when he came in, it was about the time that I had to pull back a bit from the involvement I had, so I'm not quite sure. Was it the board that got on his case, which the board has been known to do from time to time, that there's a difference of opinion, but he's just such a dynamic person. I mean, he ended up becoming superintendent, although he had come through the teaching ranks, and he was really a very interesting person, and he's been part of the group in the Rochester Coalition for Public Education, because now that we're meeting by Zoom, we can reach out to people that you would never have thought to say, jump on a plane and come to our meeting next week, you know. So we've been getting some good feedback from him, because he's continued in the job he got in was it Rhode Island or Connecticut there for I think 15 years. Just think if we had a superintendent that stayed 15 years here in Rochester. And he's been involved with a lot of the various groups, you know, the No Child Left Behind program. He was on one of those committees trying to get them not to do what they were doing, but so it's been interesting, and trying to dig away at, you know, some of the things that are coming into view is trying to do away with high stakes testing, trying to do, you know, from the standpoint of getting a feel for how the various schools are going. If you tested a quarter as much as you do now, you'd get a pretty good idea of how things are going. And the testing that they do now, where you're testing and having teachers evaluated based on how the tests go, pushes teachers in the direction of teaching to the test, because that's what's going to have the biggest impact on how they do next time around. And you'd like to really have teachers that are tuned in to understand, you know, watching how the kids are learning, who needs a little more of this, a little more of that, and have more flexibility in how the various program, you know, how the kids go. It'd be great to look at more having in some cases having the teachers move up through the years with the kids to get a closer relationship with them. There are a lot of things that probably should be done differently than they are now, but they all come with a price tag. And also the people in Rochester and at the state level, and, you know, various groups within the state that are pushing for privatizing education. The poorer the public schools do, the easier it is for charter schools to blossom. And some of them are good, and some of them are not.
You can close a charter school. They can close a charter school, which is good.
Yeah. So we'll see how this transition in Washington goes, and it may well be that they have, well, COVID is, you know, the big thing that was that a lot of groups were talking about was that there is such an upheaval caused by COVID and the, you know, switching everybody to remote learning, that maybe as you put Humpty Dumpty together again, as the vaccine makes it possible, and it may be another year or so before things are really settled out, it may allow us to try to get new practices in, to get the teaching interaction with the kids more in tune with teachers being teachers rather than being test givers. And so there are a number of groups that are pushing for eliminating, high stakes testing, and we'll see how it goes. But anything would be better than Betsy DeVos, who has been pushing privatizing education quite a bit. And it's, there are some things that you wonder about. I don't know if any of you have any viewpoints on Bill Gates. There's a big controversy. It depends on people's views whether Bill Gates is Satan incarnate or whether he is really doing a lot of good things. He's, from what I've heard of some of his programs, they were good, but no matter how well-intentioned anybody is, if you've got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so there's a certain question of how much is the success that Bill Gates or others like him have had in business, skewing their views of what education should be like. But
John, I'm as guilty as you. Your children went to Massachusetts. My children, I'm from Buffalo. I grew up, I was privileged, didn't know it. You can call me whatever. But I lived in a safe neighborhood. I went to good schools and had the opportunity of getting good jobs. The same as my parents did, and the same before.
Oh, sure.
So came to Rochester. The schools weren't good, John, but I had the opportunity to send my children. I bailed. I sent them to some private schools, and they lived in a safe neighborhood here, private schools. They got into good colleges, good law schools, and got good jobs. Every child in the city of Rochester should have that very same opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's what we should be working for.
Yeah.
Safe neighborhoods, good schools, and the opportunity to get out of the generational poverty and good jobs. It's not going to work with bad schools, John.
Oh, no, that's one of the things that, you got to make all the schools good schools. Saying that we've got 5 schools that everybody in the city wants to send their kids to. That's admitting quite a failure when you got 30 or whatever schools there are to say we've got 3 good ones. But when my kids, Jarrett went to school 19, and he had Cecilia Golden, was Cecilia Turner back then, as his Spanish immersion teacher for 3 years in a row. So he had really good teacher 3 years in a row, and he was doing pretty well. My daughter started at school 7, and after 3rd grade she was eligible for going into the MAP program, Major Achievement Program, which was over at School 50, and for both the kids, we wondered, do we really want to put them on a bus? Because I never was very fond of getting on buses when I was back in Massachusetts as a young kid. And but Jared did well at 19. Jocelyn, 3 years of accelerated learning that they got in the MAP program. And when she went back to when she left Rochester after the 6th grade and went to Worcester, Massachusetts, and basically repeated her 6th grade again because they just weren't as advanced there as she had been from the opportunities that she was able to make use here. What?
Our children deserve the best,
Mm-hmm.
and we as adults should make sure they have.
But the thing that when I look at my kids, like Jared was getting bused from the Kodak Park area over to School 19 every day, and he would have flunked the first year there if I didn't have the flexibility to jump in my car, pick him up when he missed the bus, and take him to school. But
Our parents don't.
99% of the parents don't have that flexibility. So kids that are being bused, if they miss that bus, boy, you know how it's the problem that every school has is getting not having chronic absenteeism from some of the kids, and
Children are suffering.
once you've missed a week or two of school over the course of a month or two, you're so far behind that you just aren't going to catch up. And so that's been one of the big things we've been pushing for, and one of the things we've been talking with Bronson on. But, getting the folks in Albany to make changes to those laws, it's just crazy that they're still insisting on 1.5 miles, because it would cost less having all the kids getting bused 1/2 mile than saying you're going to bus them all over town and then have the schools damaged by the busing procedure. So, how many kids do you...
John,
Yeah.
just for me, where are we on the agenda?
That is a good question. Well,
I created a new topic, which was Coalition for Public Education.
yeah, we've
'Cause
got...
that's kind of what you've been talking about.
Yeah, number 5 is the Coalition for Public Education. The budget problems, which we were kind of touching on with, the upheaval we've had to the budgets because of COVID and the reshuffling of monies.
Who's in the coalition, John?
Who's in the coalition? Yeah, there's about 50 people who
All right.
are on their distribution list,
All right.
and everybody from the superintendent gets copied on it.
All right, gotcha.
There's a number of the person who heads it up, Dan Dermesage, was the principal at Schools Without Walls for a number of years. So he's been, he's got a strong background at doing things in somewhat unconventional way, because that school was somewhat different. It's one of those schools that you always wonder, why didn't they copy something that worked well more often? There's we have Howard Mafucci, who is a county legislator and used to be superintendent of one of the, not sure if it's Pittsburgh or it's one of the school districts on the east side. He was in charge of that district for a number of years, but he's been working on looking at improving the fiber optic network in Monroe County.
Yeah, that's important, yeah.
They've got, there's probably 3/4 of the people on the group are either teachers or
Interested parties.
interested parties. There's a number of folks who are professors in some of the local teaching colleges.
And I know if I hadn't worked for Child Protective, I never would have known the devastation all this has on our children.
Oh, yeah.
It is heartbreaking.
The
We're talking all about money, teachers, this and that. Children. It's there are treasures and
yeah,
it's sad, very sad.
I
know even for in May and June, now maybe it changed, I'm not there anymore, but I know like in May we would say, oh, here it comes, and it would be, we had to go out and check homes where children were not attending. But what good is it in May? It should have been right along, and then we could have gotten some social workers in there. The whole thing has to be coordinated for the children. Now, maybe that's changed. I have not been in there a while because we complained, look, it's not going to help the child in May when the school's almost over. You got to start early.
One of the problems we ran into with the budget deficit is that some of the first people who got cut were the social workers that were working with some of the various schools.
Well, you have them with the county too. How is it? Is there still a high rate of children not attending, or has that been better? Do you know, or
how are things been at 19 right now, Monique?
Attendance records better at the city?
Well, I can't speak for the whole city. I just don't have that data on hand. But in our building, we're still struggling with attendance, and it's a multitude of reasons. Some of it has to do with devices. Some has to do with parental preference, meaning they feel like their children are on Zoom.
Oh yeah, well, no, yeah. I'm not saying yeah. During COVID, it would be an entirely different situation. I guess I'm asking a question that I should ask when the COVID situation's over.
Okay, understood.
You know what I'm saying? So everybody can work together to try to help get the children in. And work with parents.
The cuts that you ended up having to make, Monique, because of the shortfall of the budget, you let how many people go that were support staff of some sort?
So for those cuts, it went by seniority and area of need. So for me, I didn't lose any support staff, meaning counselors or social workers or school psychologists, but I did lose a lot of teachers.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we think about Joe Q. Citizen, all of us out there, and John and Eleanor saying, look, we all have to get together for our children for Rochester. And this is what we need. And it just can't be dollar signs. It has to be helping or understanding and maybe putting a little demands on the teachers and that, and putting more demands on the county and that for social workers and helping families. An all-out effort for the children. All-out effort. And it would take all the adults for the children.
How many kids that you've got?
Do you know Velma Campbell? Do you know Velma Campbell?
Velma?
No, I don't.
Oh, she's a great lady. Do you know her, Eleanor?
Yeah.
Great lady. She was Rise Rochester. She was also one of the head supervisors at CPS. She's a phenomenal lady. I've lost contact with her, but God. When all this turmoil right now, I keep thinking, Velma, where are you?
One of the things that I ran into when I was talking with the CET team at Nathaniel Rochester, which is all middle school now, is that they were doing pairing up students that needed tutors on Wednesdays, and we had talked about, possibly is that something that you'd be interested in doing at School 19? Have you gotten any sense of feasibility of doing that, Monique?
No, we're definitely on board in terms of doing it. So I just need to work out the logistics in terms of going through the district and having adults volunteer and going through the volunteer process. And then the concern of students being in Zoom rooms with adults that are not directly affiliated with the district, because normally they would come into the classroom, the teacher is still within the classroom, so that would consider, some direct supervision. So just being able to work through that process. Or the other side of it is maybe just getting parental consent and just working with the parents directly, asking them, do you consent that your child works with this tutor via Zoom? And maybe school is the connection, but we don't necessarily, conduct, or it doesn't happen during school hours per se.
Yeah. I know we were talking with School 10 recently, and they may be able to look at doing that. They had a very strong tutor program, and Lee Loomis was the coordinator who's been recruiting tutors for that program for quite a while. But so far, since COVID hit, and also I think even when they moved up to Marshall for a year or two as they were renovating the school over at Building 10, they didn't make as much use of the tutors because things were in such a state of upheaval. And so they've got a lot of folks that have been cleared as far as tutors go that they could use, but they don't have middle school, so it comes to the question of, is that something that could be done for 5th and 6th graders, for instance? And
it's hard when the parents, they did not have a good relationship with school themselves.
yeah,
So it's a hard thing because it's been going on for a long time. You got a big job there ahead of you. It's hard. It's hard.
yeah. I remember when my daughter was at Wilson Magnet, I was on the PTO or whatever we had there, and it somehow I always get sucked into these things, and we had started, you'd think I enjoy this, you know. But we had started I think we called it a New Day subcommittee. At the time, we were hosting a Japanese lady who was here to help a student, a teacher they had at Wilson who was teaching Japanese. And so we got to, you know, we had this New Day subcommittee. The Japanese at the time had a much, you know, longer school day, and we were trying to see if we needed to get more hours in the schools. And we sent out some questionnaires, and I remember one questionnaire going to supposedly the parent. I don't know if her daughter got it and filled it out instead, but she's ranting on and on like, oh my God, the day's already too long. The kids are, you know, getting bored stiff in the school programs, and just a person, you know, if it was the parent, I can understand that some of the kids had that sort of experience, perhaps. My daughter seemed to like the school, and it was the same time you were going to Wilson, Monique. So, you know, I'm sure it depended on the family backgrounds and how motivated the particular kids were. But I wonder sometimes, was it the mother or was it the child? And, you know, what is the effect? If it was the mother, then my God, you know, we have so much work to do to take care of their grandkids now that are probably going to high school somewhere. I don't know. You know, when I think back on when I went to Wachusett Regional High School, which took care of 5 townships in central Massachusetts, I mean, you had kids were the hall monitors. You know, we didn't have armed guards walking around. It's changed so much, but even there, things have changed a lot.
Still children. Sad. But we should all work together for the children.
Yeah.
Just keep saying the children, the children, the children.
Have you, let's see, at 19, you've got how many middle school grades do you have there?
We just have 7th and 8th grade, and we have about 120 students in 7th and 8th grades.
Okay, so it's one of each, and
yeah.
We have 2 sections at each grade level, 2 classes of 7th grade, 2 classes of 8th grade.
Okay.
And is that your school? It's a middle school?
Well, our school is a pre-K 3 through 8th grade building.
Okay. Wow. How many students altogether?
361.
Wow. You go home tired. Well, we're behind you. Believe me, there's a lot of citizens out there behind you.
Thank you, and let me tell you, we definitely feel the love and the passion.
Oh, you don't, you know, we really do, and we're behind the children, you know, for a better life. It's just, can't go on.
Right now, as far as making use of tutors, is that assuming they come out of the woodwork from somewhere, and I'm looking at, I'm doing all this stuff on Zoom because I'm interested in education, and But there are a lot of people, you know, in my generation that would be involved, would get involved as tutors if they were so approached. And right now, they're in many cases bored stiff of having been sequestered in their homes for the last 6 months, and we may still be another year before it's really safe for them to be doing everything in person. So it may be something that there are people who could be enticed into becoming tutors if the school or the district has an active program. Who is it? Ricky? Who's the guy in charge of the
Ricky Frazier, I believe.
Ricky Frazier, yeah. I
To
should.
get the press on it, John, when it opens up, the press, the people for volunteers, I don't know what the school system, if they want them or how they work with them. But maybe worth something that the word gets out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you gotten any sense of, you know, from the teachers? Do some of them have kids that they think would benefit from having, you know, an hour of?
Yes, absolutely. Like we've had many tutors and organizations, especially faith-based organizations, that have worked with our school and come in to volunteer on a regular basis. But the challenge of COVID and being virtual makes things a little bit more complex. Our area of need would be the middle school, to be honest, because a lot of volunteers are very happy with going into our younger grades, but maybe not so comfortable with middle school. So I think it's a real opportunity for us to build tutors within our middle school population.
Okay, well, we'll have to give Ricky Frazier a call and see what they're thinking these days. You know, everybody is learning new options that the system has brought forth because of people having to connect remotely. This let's see. Well, we've got one of the things we'll be doing Friday with the coalition is getting ready for a meeting with the superintendent on December 9th. Have you heard have you had any communications with the superintendent lately, Monique?
Not directly or one-on-one, but she does hold a weekly meeting for principals for any given updates on Friday morning, 7. So that's something that she has started since she's been in leadership of the district, which is very helpful. So she has been very good at communicating with principals in my opinion.
Good. Yeah, we've had, I think, 1 or 2 meetings with her and her state appointed.
Dr. Gallo.
Yeah, and you know, they sounded pretty good when of course, an hour on Zoom doesn't give you the full picture, and there is something to be said for being there in the room and seeing the person live. But she seems quite good if we can hang on to her. Mary, in the President's Council that the city has with the various presidents from the neighborhood associations. I'm thinking that would be a good place for us to mention possibility of trying to round up some tutors.
Oh, absolutely, but get the program together first, John. And the times, like right now, I don't think it's workable with the COVID. June, what do you think? What do you gals think? Do you think it's a good time to form it, or just maybe plant a seed that once the COVID's over, that we're gonna look for volunteers for tutoring? Are they doing tutoring now?
You know,
Well, I'm not sure, John. Are they doing that? Number 3, I was under the impression from our previous conversations that they had nothing going.
yeah, number 3, they're doing some tutoring online, and I think it's just getting, off the ground. But
I wouldn't put the horse before the cart. I would find out what's going on with the tutoring program.
mm-hmm.
You would like to start recruiting people for the tutoring program, and then have someone that they can call, because a lot would probably be retired people.
Yeah,
And once this COVID is over, and I think you get a lot of people
mm-hmm.
to come in the schools, tutor, help. I don't know what they're doing with it now.
Yeah, the big question.
I know some people did do, but they're not doing it now with the COVID.
Yeah, well, that's just it. That's one of the things that sounded appealing
But
when
you're right.
when
That
we
would
were
be a good place
talking
to say,
with Deborah Washington. People who would not dare go into a school today, if any of them were open. It's relatively easy to say, okay, I'll sit down one-on-one with
but John,
junior high student. What?
to say, this, with your role of working and trying to help raise the level of our schools, is they're looking for tutors, and here's a number you call, and blah, blah, blah. But I think if you can get that information and put it out to them, I think you get some. But I would work with whoever lines up these tutors in schools.
Yeah.
Who does it at the school?
Ricky
department?
Frazier is the person who is involved in signing off on. They've got a training program, from what you understand, and of course the question's going to be. I think some of it is going to be what's the software going to be like that we use for, if you can have Tutor A and Johnny get together for a one-on-one on Zoom, does that session get recorded so you don't have to worry about any impropriety between the tutor and the student?
Yeah, I don't know.
But
it's a crazy world.
And there are some interesting possibilities when it comes to training a tutor. You could have, a situation where you've got a well-versed tutor getting together with a student, and somebody getting up to speed as a tutor could be sitting in on that session, and
hopefully this will be over with the vaccines flying out.
Yeah, but you may find that I think it's worth looking at beyond COVID. Zoom will still be there, and opportunities for tutoring
Yeah, I'm just thinking
will
of
still
the
be
grade.
there. It just you'd be doing it after school, or perhaps in school if you can get people to work as a tutor, and either they're working with school 3 today, they may be working with school 19 tomorrow. If there are certain expertise that, some people will be good at tutoring for math, and other people haven't cracked a math book in a few years.
And math has changed a lot. The way in which we do it has changed a ton.
Yeah, and there's so many things that are changed that, but the thing that all of these kids could benefit from is just having somebody talk with them and show interest in how are they doing, and why was it that you missed school yesterday, or there's just having somebody to talk with and showing interest in them, I think maybe for some kids quite interesting.
Wow, yeah. It's about the relationship.
Right.
Well, it's 7 o'clock, and I'm going to get going.
Thank you.
Some Thanksgiving things to do. But
Yes,
you all.
You're wonderful. And
Bye, Monique.
Bye, Monique.
Take
Have a
care.
wonderful holiday.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, well, I wish you both a great Thanksgiving.
you too, John, and thank you for all your work.
Well,
You guys, you're appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
And your side
Bye, Mary. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.